I personally don't have time to like go through all this stuff, generally speaking, although for this meeting I did more than I usually do. What I usually do, however, is to look at what other folks suggest. You can see that all these various organizations, for the most part, weighed in, although the Santa Clara County Democratic Party and Club have not, and the Libertarians have a little slow on the draw also. But you can kind of get an idea of how you might be voting if you've got an inclination based on political party, or maybe you're a green kind of person that says, well, I like what the Sierra Club says, or the League of Conservation Voters. Let's see, for the most part, we've got a lot of yeses on the first one, of course, and the second one, and then the third one we get some yeses and nos, and so there's some controversy around that.
Essentially, a TOT is a transit occupancy tax, and that is a tax that's added to the bill on each night you stay in a hotel. So here in Milpitas, we have 19 hotels. Currently, the TOT, transit occupancy tax, is at a 10% rate. So if you're staying at Days Inn and it's $185 a night, which is about the going rate, you're paying each person who stays overnight pays approximately $18 in TOT. What this ballot measure does is it allows the city council to move that amount from 10 up to 14 if it's supported. A no vote would just leave it at the 10% it's at right now. The transit occupancy taxes goes 100% to the city, and this is a general measure, so the funding would all go into the general fund and could be purposed for any general fund use by the mayor and council. And something else to note is that we're actually building quite a few hotels, as you all know. There's some coming up in California Circle. We're going to be having the Virgin Hotel. We're actually increasing our hotel capacity in terms of hotel units per night by 40%. Wow. So if we increase this, not only would we receive additional revenue in the current years, but by 2023, 2024, we forecast that would be about a $7.2 million increase to the general fund. So higher now and higher later. 10% is about the lowest in Santa Clara County. So most of our peers are at 10 or higher. Santa Clara next door has a range. They have different zones and different rates. Theirs is at between 9.5 and 11.5, depending on where it is in their city. Many other jurisdictions are also considering raising this particular revenue source right now. And in a lot of ways, it's most of the folks that would be paying for this are folks that are out-of-towners, right? They're coming in and they need a hotel. So they're using our services when they're here, if they need to be on our roads or if they need to dial 911. It's Milpitas that's providing that service. So there's a thought that this is a way to have them help the people that come in, the business visitors and others, to participate in paying for the services here locally in Milpitas. Palo Alto is right now 14%. They're considering, they have a ballot measure for 15.5. Because one of the things you want to think about is if we get too far disparate from our neighbors, the people that make decisions to stay in another location because of the tax rate. Los Altos is at 11, they're considering 14. Sunnyvale's at 10.5, and they have a ballot measure for 12.5. And the other jurisdictions are between 10, 11, 12, 14. So,
do you know San Jose and Fremont?
Yes, San Jose actually also has a range. Fremont is 10 flat. San Jose has a range. Let me pull up so I get it right.
So what's the rationale for the range? What's the rationale for it?
So like, I can tell you San Jose is because so what they do is that we're the most hotel nights. So right around the convention center in San Jose, that's where the higher rate is implied. And that's, again,
makes sense.
Those are where you get most of your out-of-town visitors. The other ones that are in the more rural areas has the lower rate. And so those are closer to neighborhoods and things like that. So it's kind of a philosophy that some out-of-towners, but also our relatives are staying there in those nights too. So San Jose is between 10 and 14. So in terms of potentially a no vote, there could be those who would be impacted by that, and that would be the hotel owners. So we talked to each and every one of the 19 hotel owners and talked to them about 2 different potential rates, one being 12 and one being 14. The hotels did prefer the 12. They were generally in support of making some movement. This could also, let me tell you exactly, give you some examples of what this would mean, and could make you decide one way or the other. So if you're staying in Days Inn, that's about $185 a night. Right now, I know it's, I just did a quick Google search to get the rates. Right now, so today, people staying there tonight they would be paying, if they paid a rate of $184, they'd be paying $18.40 in TOT, which is all being used to benefit Milpitas residents for services. If we raised it to 14, that would go up to 25, and they would pay about $7 more, a little more than $7 more, $7.36 more. Like you said, but if they were at the Crown Plaza is $395 a night. So $395 right now, they're paying $39.50 tonight. Should this be passed by the voters, then they would be paying $55.30 a night, an increase of almost $16 a night on folks that stay.
How many of you have heard about a state law called Costa-Hawkins? Yes. Okay. So all that Prop 10 would do is repeal Costa-Hawkins. And Costa-Hawkins, what it is a state law that was passed in 1995 that did 3 different things. And those are actually listed right at the bottom of this flyer, and we'll go ahead and walk through those. So the first thing that Costa-Hawkins did was prohibit rent control on any apartment built after 1995 or after the year rent control was passed in your city. I am not sure, someone will have to educate me actually on Milpitas.
We don't have rent.
You don't have rent control. San Jose.
Mobile parks.
On mobile parks? Okay. So San Jose, I do know, does have rent control. It's capped at 5%, but it only applies to units built before 1979 because Costa-Hawkins restricts us. And so Milpitas would have the same restriction should it choose to implement rent control at this point. The second thing that it did is it prohibited rent control on any single-family rental unit or a condo. So single-family homes cannot be rent controlled even if the city has a policy. And the third thing that it did was eliminated vacancy control. So landlords can raise the prices of rents on any unit that is rent controlled if it becomes vacant. So I can be a resident in a rent controlled unit for 20 years and have a pretty low rate compared to what market rate rent is. But if I were to leave that unit, the rent in that unit could be raised to market rate. So it could go up pretty high. Up from that point, it would again become rent controlled and it can only go up whatever percentage, but already it's quite caught up with what is market rate. And so repealing Costa-Hawkins, it's important to note, it does not mean that rent control will be automatically expanded. All it means is that our cities can regain control to do so. So our elected officials, our council, our mayors can make more comprehensive decisions about how to implement rent control in our cities. I feel this is not very controversial. Seems like the right thing to do.
What do we do?
You're with me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think a lot of our elected officials fear this because it might mean that they would have to make a choice again soon to expand rent control. But rent control is the right thing for everybody. Whether you are someone who is lower income or someone who can afford the market rate rents, having our communities be stable is important. But again, repealing Costa-Hawkins doesn't get us there, right? Those are still decisions that have to be made. There are processes, community input. This just means that our cities, again, have the control to do so. I was born and raised in San Jose. More than half of my income goes towards my rent, and I live in a below market rate unit. And so this campaign around Proposition 10 really is about people versus money. There's a lot of money going into now on Prop 10, and it's coming from the California Apartment Association, a lot of big corporate landlords who are using our own money to try to defeat us, right? And the power of the people.
I just want to point out, this is one though that the NAACP, since I'm the first vice president, is actually in opposition to your position. And the reason we are is because until we see more cities actually take action, we think what it does is allow, if you take away the state ability to have this there, that most cities really won't take action. That's our fear. And so who's going to be hurt the most? Persons of color. And so we're looking more for cities to demonstrate they're going to be doing something before we say, let's take off the cap that actually controls it. So I just want, for the record, I didn't see them on the list. The NAACP is opposed to TAC.
You said that the NAACP was opposed because cities are not taking action, and the concern is that repealing Costa-Hawkins leaves a vacuum. I've heard from city council members in Fremont and also San Jose, there's always an argument that, so specifically, city council members in Fremont, I heard come out of their own mouths that they were not interested in passing rent control because Costa-Hawkins prevents them from applying it to everyone, and it doesn't seem fair to only apply it to homes that have been built since, or apartments built since 1995, or before 1995, sorry. And there's a concern that it would encourage landlords to demolish those and build new ones that Costa-Hawkins wouldn't apply to. So that's that argument that we need to wait for the cities to move. The cities are waiting for the state to move. So with Costa-Hawkins in place, it prevents cities from having the local control to make their decisions about rent control. And because it only applies, you can only apply it to things built before 95. If you're in one of the communities that has rent control, it is back even further. So 1978 for some places, I forget the dates, but I remember looking at that. So I have a concern that if Costa-Hawkins is not repealed, the cities are going to continue to say it doesn't make sense to pass rent control because it doesn't apply equally across the board.
Because we as a city don't want to be a city that does nothing. We, back in February, but it was during a transitional leadership time for us, I proposed the Tenant Protection Committee, and the council approved that. And when the new city manager started, she asked that I allow her a little time to come up to speed to other things that were going on. So we have just now, she just has sent out letters and made invitations. We are putting together a committee of 8 people. It'll be of the stakeholders, so that we can bring together people, because it's a very divisive issue. I mean, it is a controversial issue, but cities have to make decisions based on what is best for their city. And we saw that when we had the crisis with Sunnyhills Neighborhood Association, with the Sunnyhills homes, we saw that we had to take some steps to protect our residents. So we're bringing together this committee to have them have that conversation and to come back to us as a council and give us their what they've assessed, what their views are, and what they think our next step should be moving forward. So I think the city manager is also, because she knows it's a very divisive issue, she's hired a facilitator to have a facilitator who is not a city council member or a city staff person, but somebody that knows how to bring this group to consensus. And so that's what we are doing as a city.
Well, thank you everybody for having us here this morning. I'm the superintendent at Milpitas Unified, and I have Robert Jung with us. He's our board member. Just as the city manager, Julie, has to stay within talking about facts and both sides, that's what I have to do as well. However, our board member
She can stay there.
can talk about other things.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk first about the facts about Measure A. What you have is a mailer that we sent out earlier in the spring, beginning of the summer. It's the result of a survey that we did with anybody in the community who wanted to participate. And if you open it up, you see on the left side the top areas that they identified as need for our students and their housing. We need to think about the buildings that they're in and make sure that there's repairs, if there's modernization, make sure that there's room for our students who inhabit their school homes during the day. So Measure A is an investment in our students and our community, and the impact that it would have on our schools if it's passed is there's three major categories that we think about. One is safety and security, the other is relieving overcrowding, and the third is second high school campus. So let me start with the safety and security. Safety and security encompasses modernization types of things, as well as safety and making sure that the cement is not cracking and creating a tripping hazard, making sure that places, once we start doing something to a building, are up to code so that people with disabilities are able to move freely through the school. And also there is the security and safety that is very much on all of our minds and in our hearts as we look at what's happening to students across the nation, and making sure that we have things such as security cameras and other items that are important that contribute to student safety on campus. And just as a segue, we are going to be having a outside consultant group called I'm Ready come and look at all of our schools to assess threat assessment, security, safety, look at our practices for safety, and make recommendations. So based on some of those recommendations, when the bond is passed, we'll be implementing those. So that's safety and security. If we talk about relieving overcrowding, as you know, we've talked about the housing that's going in around the transit area. It does impact enrollment. We have enrollment projections which indicate that our elementary student population by 2026 will be about 700 more students. Now, if you extrapolate that to how that looks for high school students, because most of the housing is high occupancy type of housing or smaller townhomes, the students in those homes, once they start getting bigger, like middle to high school age, they tend to move out somewhere else. And then the other balance of that is that those students who are older are in the more established areas of our community, and we are seeing some attrition there. So if you look at our high school population in 2030, we're about 50 students more than where we currently are. So where we currently are is over 3,200 students, and campus that's pretty tight. They all have classrooms, they all have a chair, but it's pretty tight. So we need to do something to relieve that. And also, if you happen to walk on our Milpitas High School campus, and maybe perhaps visited the theater at a night that we had a music concert, which draws from all of our elementary schools, you'll see that we have to do a double session. And even with the double session, there are parents who are standing and students who are right at the edge of the stage. So that's definitely an example of a building that needs to be modernized as well as expanded to accommodate the enrollment capacity that we have. The other piece that we want to look at that we would really like to implement is a second high school campus. And I know that there's been talk over the years of trying to find land so we can build another comprehensive high school, but that just is not possible, nor is it fiscally feasible for us. But what is, and what is smart in helping us to maintain our community's pockets so that they don't have to expend too much, is if we take our existing campus, Air High School, and It used to be a high school. And we move our district offices out to another site. We have Murphy property, and since it's public, I can speak about it. Murphy property is a property that we are leasing to Mary Hill School. And Mary Hill has asked to extend their lease about 20 years. I told them that I need a place for our district office, and so they are looking at the feasibility right now of building a district office for us over there in exchange for expanding their lease for 20 years. So we'll see what happens with that, and even if they determine that the feasibility is not there to do that, it's still our property, we can still move our district office there. So that frees up 5 buildings on our 1331 address, which is their site, so we can turn that into a second high school campus. And what's exciting is that we are in an age where we know that the future of work is going to be very different, and we know that employers are expecting from students the soft skills of learning how to work with each other, learning how to be critical thinkers, learning how to take information and create something new. And that a lot of that is also done with online learning and in-person learning, and the importance of applied learning. What is applied learning? It's internships. For example, right now we're working with a group called Growth Sector, as well as San Jose City College. And in a year, we hope to have in place a math acceleration program for those students who otherwise wouldn't be at the pre-calc level, so that they will be getting internships and also accelerating their math so that they can then become computer scientists or something in the tech world. But what's going to help them is they're going to be applying those math skills on the job in an internship. And in our second high school campus, I would like to really maximize that ability so that we're really building partnerships with our businesses and our community, and that school becomes something that's a model for pathways to career. The other fact you need to know is that we are asking for $60 for every 100,000 of assessed value. And
closer to it, right?
yeah. And that is not market value. And another interesting thing that our CBO, Wendy Zhang, pointed out is that in Milpitas, we've only had 2 bonds in our history. One is in 1996, the other is 2012. And when you compare us to all of the other school districts in our county, including Fremont Unified right next door, and you look at the amount of tax that their citizens are paying because of all the bonds they've had, Milpitas is literally the lowest. We only have, as of last year, $47.50. And it's illustrative of, one, we're trying to be very cognizant of making sure that we're not asking our community for taxes every time we want to do something different. The other thing is it represents the fiscal responsibility that our district has managed over the years so that we have high bond ratings and are able to therefore have lower interest requirements on paying back those bonds, which then the taxpayers see. So when I say $60 for every $100,000 of assessed value, that's the maximum. But depending on how the market's doing, and thanks to our AA2 rating that we now have, it may be still around $47.50 or $50 per 100,000. So those are the facts.
What I'm gonna talk a little bit about is the value of the investment, because this is truly an investment for our kids, our future, our community. Because as Cheryl pointed out, the worst case number that citizens, residents are paying is $60. But if you really look at the actual rate that citizens have paid in the past and potentially in the future, because there is growth in our city, the actual will be probably less than $60 per 100,000. So the investment for that, if we take, for example, $1 million as the assessed value, which means your market value is significantly higher, right? It's roughly 83% is what the assessed value comes out to be. It's actually, even if we take that worst case out of $1 million, you divide that by the 100,000, that's approximately $600 a year, if I did my math right, okay? And the length of the bond is, you know, at $600 a year, that investment is going to give our students, our future, the future of our community, the ability to give opportunities for our kids that we wouldn't have, such as that second high school at Air Site. Thank you. Air something. So I think it's really, when you look at it, that investment in our community, in our kids, is well worth what we're asking in terms of really making sure that we have a safe campus across all of our schools. It's making sure that we have the ability to grow so that we can adjust for the opportunities that exist for our kids that going forward. And it really gives us the ability to relieve some of the tightness that we have at Milpitas High School.
And if you talk about an investment, that's really true, because if persons invest in their homes, you know, a new kitchen, whatever it is, hoping that the values go up. If you go back and look at investment in schools, just the way they look and what goes on inside those four walls, that itself, that investment allows your property values to go up.
Right.
And Milpitas has become a destination city, not just because of all the great things that are going on outside and around you, but because of what you're doing there. And so I really think that the school district is like in the top 3, top 4 in this county with regard to delivery of services and education. And so persons also want to know that they can send their children to a facility that is 20th century, as opposed to something that still looks like it was 1950. That's number one. 22nd. That's fine with me too. With regard to the new high school, I think that's good to hear, because I keep hearing us talk about you building a new high school, and I don't think you have enough bond dollars to do that if you were going to do that. So I'm glad to hear it's going to be there. And with that really is a partnership with the city, because there's other city facilities there that you need to make use of, and I think you have a partner that is going to be willing to go ahead and try to shape that, because it really means a lot for all of the residents here, those that have children in your schools, but also those that use the sports complex and everything else. So those are the reasons when people ask me, why are you supporting it?
Absolutely.
It helps everyone, and as I look at it, it's an important time now to make sure that you're ready in the next 5 to 10 years.